after the championship this early. We'll tell you all about it. What's going to be left for the remaining 23 racers, and 2 more opportunities to win. Who's the favorite going in? And a brand new circuit at Berlin is going to make it for a very exciting last 2 races. Formula E Zone and Grid Network welcome you to Formula E Fest.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 6 of Formula E Fest. And with me, as always, right here, Joe Samniego and Jack from Formula E Zone. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Very well, thank you.
So far, so good. Beautiful morning here.
Yeah, definitely a beautiful morning here in the East Coast of North Carolina, but very excited to talk some Formula E with you guys as always. Definitely looking forward to another great program. And to all of our viewers watching, be sure to make comments in the chat room. We'd love to hear what you have to say and answer any questions that you have. And we're going to start off today's program by looking at some breaking news. James Calado from Jaguar will miss the final 2 races of the season due to AF Corsa FIA WC commitments at Spa-Francorchamps. And Jaguar named his replacement is going to be Tom Blomqvist. And for James Calado, definitely hasn't had the season at Jaguar that he probably hoped for. So my question for you guys is, how disappointing is it for James Calado ending his Jaguar tenure early in what many could consider a disappointing season for the GT Ace?
I think, he said yesterday, so we knew he was going to leave. Like, we knew Sunday was the last race, and obviously Sunday's race for him, wasn't a great one. And he sort of was wrapping up his career in Formula E, his season, and he just said COVID-19 for him came at the wrong time, and he struggled for adaptability. So he struggled to adapt to the car, which is huge in Formula E, because we're finding that adaptability is what drivers need to be successful in this championship. And Calado struggled to have that. And if we've got some amazing drivers like Nil Yanni, for example, world endurance champion, and he hasn't really adapted to the car. So Calado, saying in the press conference yesterday that, he hadn't adapted to the car was one of his weaknesses, and that COVID-19 came at the wrong time because he was on a nice upward trajectory. Like, qualifying was getting better, but races he was doing well. But qualifying was where he was struggling in the one lap shootout format that it is in Formula E. And he was hoping that he could keep building race on race on race, and hopefully then keep his seat for next season. But COVID-19 came, and Jaguar had to make a decision, and they decided to drop him.
Yeah, it has to be disappointing for him to be dropped by Jaguar. I know not exactly the great season he had hoped for. Formula E going to Jaguar. The team was looking really good, especially after the last couple of seasons, as they've been increasing their speed, their performances have been going up. We saw Mitch Evans, how he's been really good. I anticipate him to do well this year too, especially finishing in the top 5. Just really surprising. It has to be disappointing to have his season come to an end early with Jaguar.
Yeah, when it comes to GT racing, James Calado is one of the best GT drivers on the entire planet. And I know Jack mentioned adaptability, being a big issue, and Calado saying that, COVID-19 came at the wrong time for him. And I understand, when drivers come from other disciplines, they're not always when they're successful, like Calado has been in GT racing, especially like the GT Pro GTLM platform. So when it comes to that, and going to an entire new discipline like Formula E, just because one driver has success in another series doesn't necessarily guarantee that they're going to be really good in Formula E. And my question regarding this, Jack, you talked about him having trouble adapting to Formula E, but why did it seem that Calado has a lot of trouble being competitive? And do you think that he'll return to Formula E someday, or do you think it's over for him?
I think, whether he's got a year of Formula E experience now, so that's something. So that could help him in trying to get a Formula E seat in the future. It's just a difficult series. It's a completely different way of driving. There's so much more to focus on. It's like Felipe Massa was saying, the drivers are very much like engineers in the car, which, they're focusing on the energy recovery. They're driving, they're trying to attack. They've also got to regen at the right points, drive in a style. Also, you might have to change your driving style. So if Calado is quite an aggressive driving style, he might have to become more smooth, and that adaptability process might be a bit more difficult for him. I think there is a chance that he can get into Formula E, but to be fair, his season that he's had probably would make it difficult for him to rejoin a Formula E grid, because when they think, okay, when they come to assess their options, you could take someone new who might get it straight away, or you take someone who has had some experience, didn't really do the job. Will he do the job this time? Who knows? And also it depends on how long he's out of the series for, which also might mean the adaptability and changing might be a bit more difficult. So still a lot of question marks around Collado for me. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens in the future.
It'll be very interesting to see what happens in the future. I know, especially with James. Formula E next year is going to have a world championship status from the FIA. That's going to make it where I think a lot of people are going to be looking at Formula E as this is where I want to be. And we're seeing that already with drivers such as Antonio Felix da Costa, Lucas Di Grassi. They want to be in Formula E. They're having a good time. You bring up a good point about Felipe Massa. It seems like Formula E, it is a very different challenge for everyone. We've seen other drivers like Jarno Trulli, former F1 driver, come in, didn't have the exact success he had hoped for. Nelson Piquet Jr., yeah, he got the first world championship for Formula E, but he didn't really stick around, didn't have too much success, especially joining a then brand new Jaguar team. So it's a very different style of racing in Formula E, and you bring up some really good points. It's going to be really interesting to see if he does return back to Formula E.
Yeah, you definitely bring up some good points, Joe. About drivers being committed to Formula E now. I remember at the very beginning of the Formula E championship, people were very critical of this, and they're like, oh, that this is going to be the championship where all the people who weren't good enough to be in Formula One go, and it seemed like that it might have been just a series where where drivers would just go and hang out because they weren't good enough to be in Formula One. But however, Antonio Felix da Costa clinching the championship, and showing a strong form, and Jean-Eric Vergne as well for the past 2 years, and also this season as well. Those drivers are proving that they should have received great opportunities to be in Formula One, but with Formula E growing like this, I definitely think that Formula E is going to be a great place for them for the foreseeable future, and many others as well. So Formula One in the future, I don't think that it may not be necessarily the top option for drivers. Formula E may become a great option as well, as Antonio Felix da Costa, Jean-Eric Vergne, Sebastian Buemi, and a lot of others already proven.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like if the option of Formula One is not there, and there's a lot of drivers in Formula Two at this precise moment, Guan Yu Zhou, for example, that might be looking at a Formula E seat in the future if nothing comes up at Formula One. And there is a lot of young drivers who can actually go and say, oh, you know what? There's so many manufacturers now in Formula E that I can actually progress and have a really good career with them, if that makes sense, because they could go into different series, they can dip their toes in other things, and it's not just it's all over. Like sometimes it isn't all over for some of these young kids. When they lose, they don't get into Formula One, they drop out of Formula Two because they've been in it for too long, and then they think, what's next? And kind of like what Da Costa felt like. We'll get into that a bit later, but it gives them another option. So I can actually go and make a career for myself, and I think that's key.
Very key, and you bring up a really good point. We've seen drivers in the Renault Driving Academy. After it was announced Fernando Alonso was going back to Renault, a lot of people were questioning, well, why do you have this driving academy? They're all sitting around waiting for opportunity, and you're going back with essentially the old guard. Formula E, so many different manufacturers, so many different programs. This is a really great place for drivers where if you're not going to have the best seat at Formula One, this is a place where you could have a great seat. Even if you don't have the greatest seat in Formula E, as we always said, is so unpredictable. Anything could happen. And essentially, when we see the race, and it's always so competitive, very unpredictable. Consistency is really challenging. A lot of that all has changed this week, but still, I anticipate it's going to be a very interesting season and growth for Formula E. Now, speaking about some of the unpredictability, Saturday, we return back to the traditional course at Berlin, in which we saw Jean-Eric Vergne. He took the pole, trying to rebound after 2 disappointing races. Antonio Felix da Costa, he didn't make it into the Super Pole. He qualified 9th. At this point during the race, well, prior to the race, when we knew da Costa was going to be starting 9th, was there concerns like this could be the start of trouble for Antonio Felix da Costa?
There's always a hint, right? I go back to season 5, Sam Bird, right? Sam Bird started the championship really well, and hasn't won a championship in Formula E. And season 5 started really strongly with him in Virgin, but Group 1 qualifying came, more tracks which were dirty, and he was sort of going down the order, not doing great qualifying sessions, and then he was starting to get caught up in accidents. So, easily can happen to Da Costa on Saturday. Thankfully for him, it didn't. He managed to play it really safe, going into turn 1 and in the opening few couple of laps. But yeah, that's the problem with Formula E, and we see it all the time. We saw it in Sunday's race as well. If you have a poor qualifying, you leave yourself open to getting punted out and not picking up any points at all and seeing your championship chance completely evaporate.
Joe, as you mentioned, Formula E is very unpredictable. Antonio Felix da Costa, when he was starting ninth, a little bit further back than he probably hoped. I was thinking, oh gosh, da Costa, he might be in trouble here because anything can happen back there in the pack, and he just needs to make it through clean, or a retirement, something that he didn't necessarily need. Although he was looking really good in the championship. But you still want to keep up the consistency, finish in the championship points, and avoid issues, because in Formula E you have no idea what can possibly happen if everything goes wrong.
Yeah, no idea. Especially, I know Berlin's a little bit of a wider track compared to some of the tracks like in Uruguay, Santiago, where it's more narrow, more tight. Especially Monaco, that's going to be something where it's going to be really challenging starting further in the back. Essentially, once the race did get started, it was essentially Jean-Eric Vergne and Max Gunther in the BMW starting in the front row. As the two drivers headed off, Jean-Eric Vergne did lead the first few laps. Max Gunther was right behind it, and I was surprised. He was really putting pressure on the leader. As he was putting pressure on the leader, we saw eventually he did get around Jean-Eric Vergne. The inconsistency for Stoffel Vandoorne, that continued on Saturday. A punctured tire, that ended his day. I know this was the first season of Mercedes in Formula E. And overall, I would say they had a pretty good season. But should people be really anticipating Stoffel Vandoorne to win a race this year?
Maybe not this year, but next year for sure, because Mercedes have been really moving forward like massively and making good steps. And I think we can see that with Nick de Vries. Nick de Vries has made a huge step forward since post lockdown. Like he had a good start to the season, Nick de Vries, but it was a bit hit and miss, and he was picking up penalties. Now that they've sorted out the penalties, Nick de Vries, I think, could be such a strong driver, and could be a driver that could push for a championship if Mercedes get a powertrain together and can challenge DS Techeetah. And next season for sure, depending on how well Techeetah do in the off season and if they're still ahead of the pack. But for sure, I would expect Mercedes and Porsche. I probably have to put Porsche in that category because they're such big manufacturers, fighting for wins next season.
Yeah, I strongly agree with you right there, Jack. I think Stoffel Vandoorne and especially Nick de Vries, I think next season you can definitely expect them to be more competitive and up the front, hounding DS Techeetah. And it's going to be interesting to see how they develop the Mercedes over the offseason heading into 2021, because I certainly think, with this year of experience, under their belt, Stoffel Vandoorne and Nick de Vries, I think that they can certainly be a force to be reckoned with in the future.
Definitely a force to be reckoned with. I know, especially with Mercedes, they came in, they looked pretty good overall, and we saw Nick de Vries, what he's doing this year. Yeah, I think it's unrealistic to anticipate a win from Stoffel Vandoorne, from Nick de Vries, but definitely next year is going to be a year a lot of people are going to be looking at them to contend. Now, of course, the top contenders for the championship were all mid-pack. But we did see Antonio Felix da Costa on Saturday. He started slowly climbing up to fourth place. Robin Fringe up to second place, and he started way in the back. But at the end, nobody had anything really for Max Gunther as he took the win. With Max Gunther's win, that put BMW and Ready up front. Robin Fringe, Jean-Eric Vergne, he managed to hold on to third place. Antonio Felix da Costa and Andre Lauderer, he came way in the back with his Porsche to finish in fourth, and then rounding out the top 5 was him as well. So overall, it was a really good, interesting race. When we did see after the race, Antonio Felix da Costa had a 69-point lead. Max Gunther was in second place. Do you all saw Max Gunther as the new championship threat entrance Sunday?
Well, not as a championship threat, because even on Saturday with DaCosta's result in fourth, it was still enough easy for him to win the championship on Sunday. But it was for me, Gunther's win was absolutely fantastic. It was I've described it as a very MotoGP style race where you sit in the slipstream in MotoGP and you wait and you wait and you wait till the last couple of laps before you make your move, and maybe in MotoGP you make on the last lap if you're sitting in the slipstream. Whereas this time Gunther sort of stalked Verne. He absolutely stalked him until he knew he had to make a move, because he knew Frijns was coming up with more energy, which was really interesting. And he went against the team, a bit like Max Verstappen on Sunday in Formula One, went against the team and said, you know what, no, I'm not holding station and waiting to the last lap. I'm going now if I want to win this race, because I know Frijns is a threat behind. And for someone who's only 22, 23 years old, like, that is a very calm head on young shoulders and very mature. And again, like, we're talking, Nick de Vries has got a huge opportunity. I think if BMW get it right for Gunther, he's got a massive opportunity to challenge for a title, because, you know, that was such a mature win and well executed and was fantastic to watch.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it was great for Max Gunther being able to get that win on Saturday, considering he restarted the season, hadn't exactly gone the best for him, and it was certainly a positive day for Gunther, standing on the top step of the podium. But however, that bad luck would return the following day on Sunday. And speaking of Sunday's race, Jean-Eric Vergne won his second pole in a row, and Antonio Felix da Costa was on the pole until Jean-Eric Vergne knocked him off, and Max Gunther qualified way back in the field in 21st. And how in the world did Max Gunther qualify so poorly?
That is just Formula E, right? And I was talking about this last night on our show, and we were like, I think now there's no excuse for qualifying in Group 1, because we've seen Vandoorne, Da Costa. Yes, you may say it's Berlin and track's rubbered in, and there's different circumstances due to COVID-19 and how we're racing at the moment. But hear me out. Because if you want to win a championship, right, you need to stop having bad qualifying in Group 1 and blaming Group 1 and get this Group 1 obsession that we have in Formula E, that the track conditions are so bad that, we can't put a lap together. And I feel like the drivers in Group 1 are a bit more cautious. And I feel like they've got to scrap that now, because the reason why he's in P20, because he's probably been a bit cautious, knowing that the track's not up to full grip at that point. But then at the same time, you get people like Vandoorne and Da Costa making it through from Group 1 into Superpole. So I don't think that's an excuse anymore for Gunther. You've just got to nail the lap in qualifying, and that's huge. And I think a lot of people will be working in the simulators, prepping a green track, having a green track in the simulator, and trying to do one lap as fast as they can. Because at the moment, if you keep doing what Gunther's doing, what Evans has been doing, what Vandoorne's been doing, what Bird's been doing in Group 1, you are never going to win a championship in Formula E.
You pretty much hit it right there on the head. You have to be consistently good in qualifying. And I feel with the group stages and then the Superpole format that we have, I feel out of all the series, the 7 series I could think of in the grid ranking, Formula E has the most intense qualifying format. If you're in the top 6 in points, that's wonderful. We're going to have you all go out first. No other series has anything like that currently, and it just makes it really interesting, puts a challenge there. And that's why we so often see drivers who are up in the points having to fight their way towards the front. But as Antonio Felix da Costa really proved, if he could get into Superpole, he has a much calmer route towards getting victory and essentially a championship.
At the beginning of the race, it was a clean start out front, but however, for Max Gunther, starting at the back, trouble arose as he suffered heavy front end damage after the field checked up on him in turn 4. And later on, earlier today, Max Gunther released a statement saying he suffered a bruised hand, a bruised left hand to be specific, in this incident, which is really unfortunate for him. Hopefully, Gunther will be able to heal up and be ready for the final 2 races in a few days. And with Max Gunther retiring from the race, Antonio Felix da Costa had to finish 5th or better in order to clinch the championship. So at this point, when Gunther went out and all Da Costa had to do is just finish 5th or better, did you guys see the championship as wrapped up or not yet? Just in case, because Formula E is very unpredictable.
It was pretty much wrapped up. with DaCosta being out there in the top 3 positions, especially with DS Cheetah starting 1-2, and the qualifying laps that they put in, it was just unbelievable. Both Vern and DaCosta's lap time was just unreal. So no, I really, when they were 1-2, I was like, well, all he has to do is exactly what he did, stay in second, and just see it home, and that's exactly what he did, and as again, well measured, well executed drive, totally deserved, but helped by good qualifying. If he didn't have a good qualifying, it could have been so much difficult. If he started in, imagine if DaCosta started where Gunther did, and it happened to DaCosta, it'd be huge just because he mucked up qualifying. And that's that's, as I said earlier, is the difference between winning a championship in Formula E and not winning one.
Yeah, with him sitting in second, I just saw where, okay, he knows. They probably radio him, Max Gunther's out. Just finish 5th place or better. Nobody else was going to be within reach of you by then. So even if he was still racing and then we saw the Nissans get around him 4th, 5th, 3rd, any of those places, he was still would have clinched it. And I feel like at that point, especially once we knew Max was out of the race, it was just DaCosta's championship to win.
Yeah, certainly. I felt the championship was wrapped up as well, and I thought it was Antonio Felix DaCosta. He was going to win the championship no matter what. At this point, it was just everybody else is just too far back in the points. And after all of this happened, DS Cheetahs, both of them, DaCosta and Jean-Eric Vergne, went for attack mode at the same time. And there were some uneventful lead changes. That seemed like that it might have been coordinated between both DS Cheetahs. Do you think that this was possibly an incident of team orders, and if so, why?
Yeah, it was. They were just protecting each other from energy. So the Nissans the lap before, so Roland was in 3rd, Buemi 4th. They went into attack mode to try and undercut. So that, again, attack mode played the huge role here. And they sort of got it wrong in the first instance, Nissan, because they sort of did it too early, got boxed in. And, they probably could have, if they timed it right, they probably could have undercut DS Cheetah and actually taken the lead of that race, but they didn't. They came back into 3rd and 4th. Then a couple of laps later, Nissan did it again. Both cars went in, tried the undercut, and this time it was so close. Roland was probably second for like a second. Roland nearly undercut DaCosta, but DaCosta managed to get with the exit of attack mode. Was able to go straight on the power for longer, and didn't Roland around the outside. So, the main reason why they took and had to take attack mode at the same time was to cover off Nissan's from the undercut attempt. And if they didn't on that lap, Nissan would have won that race.
Yeah, the undercut, it was very much well in effect where if we could see a driver get that attack mode the lap before, try to gain a position when the next vehicle ahead of them went for attack mode. Definitely DSG, I'm pretty certain they had some sort of meeting where they discuss about, okay, here's our strategy entering the race. We have a driver going for the championship. He could wrap it up. We still got a battle for second place in the points, and we could wrap up the team championship. A lot to lose. We've seen in racing before where teammates do get together, which is the number one rule. Don't crash your teammate. This was definitely something where I felt the Cheetah took the right approach, have some sort of agreement, because definitely while we saw the Cheetahs out front and exchanging the lead, we didn't see where the two were racing hard. We didn't see them using up their energy or tires throughout the race.
Lucas Di Grassi and Audi went from 12th to 6th. Mitch Evans and Jaguar went from 11th to 7th, and Andre Lauderer and Porsche went from 18th to 8th. If those three drivers and teams had a better qualifying lap, do you think they would be fighting DS Cheetah?
Yeah, the championship wouldn't be over. The championship wouldn't be over. We'd still be going into this final 2 races with a championship to go. Because if they're qualifying traditionally at the front, right, they'll be scoring the big points. But the thing is, they haven't, because they've been coming from down the order and fighting through and scoring low points, whilst Tech Cheetah have been at the front. So if it was a traditional qualifying session, but we might see in Formula One, for example, maybe they would eventually get to the front and we'd see a sort of grid that we kind of expect. And therefore, you like some Mitch Evans, your Sebastian Buemi's, your Andre Lauderers, your Nick de Vries, your Van Dorns. I'm going to put Audi a bit lower in that list because I don't think they have the best car. And they'd be with DaCosta and Jean-Eric Vergne, but instead We've got the likes of Mahindra, who've got great one-lap pace, but poor race pace. Popping up Alex Lynn, who did an absolutely amazing job. And for the stuff that he's done, I'm sure he'll keep that seat at Mahindra. But then you've got teams who don't have great race pace qualifying a bit higher up. And then that slows you down as you're trying to get past them all. And then that lets Da Costa run away with it. So for sure, if they did qualify properly and up the field, I don't think the championship would be over just yet.
Yeah, obviously the championship battle still going on. They showed they could move up the field. But as you mentioned earlier, now we're at a point where we can't afford to have a poor qualifying result and just anticipate we're going to climb up and contend for the championship. If you want that championship, you got to start up front. Because as we saw, the Porsche, they're fast. Mercedes, fast. Audi, they don't have their best car, but still, Lucas Di Grassi has so many vehicles. Imagine if he was starting fifth. He could definitely be putting the pressure on the top 4 right there rather than trying to climb up into the top 10.
Yeah, certainly qualifying better would have helped out those drivers a lot. But unfortunately, too little, too late. Jean-Eric Vergne eventually regained the lead from Antonio Felix da Costa. Sebastian Buemi moved around Oliver Rowland, but he could not take the fight to Diaz Techeetah. Jean-Eric Vergne ended up winning. Race 4 in Berlin, Antonio Felix da Costa clinched the 2019-20 Formula E Championship, and Diaz Techeetah as well clinched the team championship. And looking right here at the top 10 results, Diaz Techeetah 1-2, surprise, surprise. Jean-Eric Vergne, Antonio Felix da Costa, Sebastian Buemi rounds out the podium, and you got Nick de Vries in the Mercedes and Ford, Oliver Rowland 5th in the Nissan, Lucas Di Grassi 6th, Mitch Evans 7th, Andre Lauder 8th, Alex Lynn 9th, and Felipe Massa rounds out the top 10.
Yeah, it was really surprising, especially seeing Felipe Massa in the top 10. Of course, he did make it to the Super Pole that race, but still a good effort for the Venturi team. Now, of course, as you mentioned, Season 6 champion, Antonio Felix da Costa. Initial thoughts on Antonio Felix da Costa being the ABB Formula E champion?
Just brilliant. Fair play to the lad. What a season he's had. 3 wins, 3 second-place finishes as well. Super consistent. 1 4th-place finish, which obviously he had on Saturday's race. And it's just been absolutely brilliant. The level of consistency that he has put in has been second to none. Probably something that we haven't really seen much of in Formula E. So, yeah, as a champion, fully deserved. Probably one of the best seasons a Formula E driver has had on his way to a championship.
Certainly one of the best seasons for a Formula E driver, Antonio Felix da Costa. I feel like, Antonio Felix da Costa and also his teammates, Jean-Eric Vergne, I feel like those are 2 drivers that didn't really get a fair opportunity in Formula One. I know Jean-Eric Vergne was able to make starts in Formula One with what's called AlphaTauri now, was Toro Rosso back then, and then eventually ended, and he ended up in Formula E and endurance racing. Antonio Felix da Costa, when he was coming up through the junior categories, I thought da Costa might have made it to Formula One, but unfortunately that hasn't been the case, and he certainly found a home in Formula E. So Antonio Felix da Costa being in the Formula E world, definitely Formula One's loss in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree, 100%.
Me too. Formula One's loss. And he really seems to really click well with the team. And I feel, especially the long road he's had, he's been there since Season 1 as a back marker. To see him climb his way up to the championship, really super exciting. I know Diaz Techeetah, 3 drivers' championships now in a row. Of course, this was their 2nd team championship. Should we be surprised that essentially Diaz Techeetah has accomplished this?
No, not at all, because what they've done so far has been amazing, and obviously, they could have won 3 teams championships. They lost the Season 4 championship on the final day to Audi. I think they lost it by a point or 2, so they could have already matched Renault Edams in terms of winning 3 teams championships. But they are the team to beat. They are the team to beat going into next season, and they're probably going to be starting strong. And we need these big manufacturers of Mercedes, Porsche, Jaguar to start catching them up and to start actually battling them for race wins, because they can. We know they can when they get everything right. But the thing is, with these teams at the moment, they are not getting everything right. And that is the key bit that Techeetah are doing and the other teams are not.
Well, I strongly agree with you. I think we should not be surprised at all to see DS Cheetah, winning three driver championships in a row. John Everett been a double champion, and then Antonio Felix da Costa this season. The team is just doing everything right at the moment, and our cars are so much better than everybody else's, and crazy. With formerly being so close in the past, it seems like DS Cheetah is a step above everybody else right now, and in a different zip code. And the teams you mentioned, it's going to be interesting to see if we can have Audi, Jaguar, Porsche, all of those manufacturers. Are they going to be able to catch up over the off season? That's definitely something that should leave Formula E fans wondering as we move through the off season, heading into the 2021 season.
It's going to be really interesting to see how those big teams respond. Now, one of the big things, Formula E, they posted a tribute video to the champion, Da Costa. It's even on YouTube. So, I encourage all the fans because he really highlighted the long road for him, not just in Formula E, but in his entire career. And he did talk a lot about that in his first interview after he won the championship. It was a very emotional speech.
Yeah, it definitely was. I think we've lost Joe, so I'll just grab on. It definitely was an emotional speech. Like he was going through Kobe, his time at Red Bull, and at that point, he was thinking of giving up. Right, he was thinking of giving up and going back to school, going back to university or college for in America, and just doing amateur racing on the side. And then the thanking of BMW has been absolutely because they said if it wasn't for BMW, it gave him that chance to jump on and actually become a professional racing driver, which then gave him that chance in BMW in Formula E, and therefore, here he is today as a champion, Kobe.
Yeah, I've certainly seen that story many times before with other drivers. In the end, when they ultimately claim the grand prize, it's such an emotional situation because it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I made it here. I finally made it to the top after all of the troubles that I've experienced in my life, and all of the bad days, and the everything that could have gone wrong. I've seen multiple times, with drivers all over the world in stock cars, open wheels, sports cars, where it looks like their career, at a crossroads, and it might have ended. But however, they just kept pushing, working hard, and in the end, they were rewarded by their perseverance. And Antonio Felix da Costa, understand when he was trying to make it into Formula One, it looks like that it was going to be over for him, but he found a new home in Formula E and made the most of his situation. And it seems like Antonio Felix da Costa is going to be a well respected driver for in motor racing for many years to come.
Yeah, definitely when it comes to the long road, it's really unique with Formula E since it is a brand new series, only 6 seasons in. We've seen drivers such as Nelson Piquet, who came from Formula One, come in here. At that time, this first season, a lot of people thought, okay, these were drivers that couldn't cut it in F1. But then we see Buemi with Renault, strong team. We saw Lucas di Grassi with Audi, another good, strong team. Jean-Eric Vergne, DS Cheetah, great team. Antonio Felix da Costa, he didn't have just the luxury of signing on with right away a strong team like Audi, Renault, Nissan, all those. So he really took the long way. And especially, I think, when we've seen other motorsports where we've seen drivers that come in, they start with a backmarker team, work their way to a top right, and then get a championship. It seems it gets really popular with the fans. So I definitely think this is a very popular championship for Formula E.
Yeah, no, of course. Like with Da Costa, he's the champion now, and he's found his home. And for me, I just you want them to stay. You want the champions to stay. It's a shame we don't have Nelson Piquet Jr. in the championship anymore, as we said earlier. But you want them fighting. You want to see how the young guns do, like the Nick de Vries, the Maximilian Gunther's, do against these drivers and new young guns that will eventually come into Formula E. Maybe Sergio Sette Camara. He looked very promising over this weekend's racing. So it'd be interesting to see what they can do against these elder statesmen now, these drivers that we've seen around for a while now, and see how they do. So I'm delighted for Da Costa. He said that he's not really interested in going back to Formula One now that he's won the championship. And if he was offered it, he'd probably reject it because he doesn't really want to go back. So that's good in a sense for Formula E that they're going to keep their champion. And it happened with Vern as well. Vern had the same. He was offered a F1 drive after winning the championship last season, and he turned it down. And he said, "No, I'm very happy to stay in Formula E, thank you."
Yeah, and actually, I don't blame Jean-Eric Antonio Felix da Costa for feeling that way. Turning down a Formula One drive because if I'm winning championships driving for the best team in Formula E, why would I want to go run mid pack or at the back of the field in Formula One? Like the only way, and if I was in their situation, the only way I'd accept the Formula One drive if I'm driving one of those Silver Arrows at Mercedes. Otherwise, it's really not worth going over to Formula One just to run the mid pack or at the back. Just out there riding and not being competitive at all.
Yeah, definitely not. You don't want to be just riding around, be uncompetitive in Formula One. I know the opportunity to be in Formula One is always exciting, but I feel Formula E, especially now that's going to have world championship stats, it's going to be really interesting to see if this becomes now an alternative career move because we have so many manufacturers, such a competitive field. And I think it's definitely one of the fastest growing. I mean, we have 8 manufacturers. I'm really excited about the future of Formula E and seeing how everything goes. Now, of course, we still have points battle going on, not exactly for the championship, but for second place.
Yeah, definitely. I know we've talked about the past champions. Nelson Piquet Jr. winning the inaugural Formula E championship, then Sebastian Buemi, Lucas Di Grassi, Jean-Eric Vert winning back to back, and now Antonio Felix da Costa. However, you mentioned the second place battle is going to be intense to finish out the current season, and the top 10, behind Antonio Felix da Costa, they mathematically can finish second in the championship, and the point standings has changed, a lot after every Berlin race so far. And so, was this the type of battle you guys expected, but for the championship?
Yes, this is exactly what we were expecting for the championship because that's how crazy Formula E is, and that's what we've seen in past seasons. Season 5, we went into season 5 was last season. We saw going into the final weekend in New York that 6 drivers could have won the championship at that weekend. And we were quickly eliminating them this time around just because of how consistent the Costa has been. But that's because last season and the way Formula E is structured, they weren't that consistent. Therefore, they were having those poor qualifyings and having to come through the field. And some drivers one day got it much better, and other days they were worse. So, and that makes the standing so tight as we see for the battle for second. I have a feeling Jean-Eric Verne is pushing away at the moment, and will probably get that second place, and it will probably become a battle for third in the championship. But Verne's been struggling with race pace and energy, which was part of the reason why they were swapping cars. Da Costa and Verne, which is to help Verne save energy in the slipstream of Da Costa. But I think with Techeetah's pace at the moment, I think Verne's the shoe-in for second in the championship, and it'll be who finishes third.
It could easily be a who finishes third. I know, as you mentioned, Jean-Eric Verne, seems like the race pace doesn't seem to be there, but unless for some reason they don't put down a good qualifying lap, I see Jean-Eric Verne being the favorite for second place. It's just been really amazing. Ever since we started our race week at Berlin, second place changed after every race. It's been a different second place person, while Da Costa has just stayed up front because of his consistency. It really highlights the importance of being consistent and winning your championship.
Yeah, yeah, mentioning Jean-Eric Verg, right now, Antonio Felix da Costa's teammate wrapped up the championship, and both DS2 Cheetah drivers wrapped up the team championship for them. And with that, no pressure for Jean-Eric Verg at all now. Do you think he's going to benefit with the championships being wrapped up?
I think so. He'll obviously be annoyed that he didn't win the championship because that's Jean-Eric Verne's nature. But there's no stress now, is there? It's just go out there and have a strong race. That's all they need to do is just go out there, have a race, have some fun, and try and do their absolute best because both championships are done. It's all about pride now.
Definitely all about pride. I see Jean-Eric Verne just going out there. He's going to try everything he can to get a win and second place to see how everything turns out for him and the Cheetah team.
Yeah, definitely. And looking at the top 10 in the standings again, do you guys see any favorites for third?
Definitely when it comes for third, I think some of the favorites I see out there has to be, of course, Lucas Di Grassi. He just needs to put together a good qualifying lap to wrap up third place. If Lucas Di Grassi could put good qualifying lap for third up there in the front, I could see him being the favorite for third in the championship. So it's going to be really interesting to see if Lucas Di Grassi is able to grab third place.
Yeah, I agree totally in terms of, well, Lucas Di Grassi, I think will be tough. Obviously, he's been outperforming that car, but for me, I'm looking at the Maximilian Gunther's. What can he do for third? You got Sebastian Buemi. That Nissan has been super quick. What can Mitch Evans do? I think it's going to be incredibly close. All they need is like one good race, like Stoffel Van Dorn, Lotterer. They just need one good race, and then a half decent result could be good enough for third. Because when you look at the standings, look, Gunther 69, Di Grassi 69, Sebastian Buemi 67, 65 for Evans, and then a little bit further back, Andre Lotterer 59, Stoffel Van Dorn 57. Like, it is incredibly tight.
Yeah, and I think if I had to pick a driver to finish third in the championship, I definitely think it'd be Sebastian Buemi right now. You mentioned Lucas Di Grassi is really outperforming his Audi right now because it's certainly not the best car that they've had in Formula E competition. But it seems like the Nissan is being really consistent right now, and I definitely think Sebastian Buemi, if he can have some really good consistent finishes up during the points, he can certainly walk away with being third in the championship standings.
Definitely, that could definitely be the case for the championship stand. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens for race 5 and 6. But of course, race 5 and 6 is going to be on a different circuit. Taking a look at the circuit map, as you can see for race 5 and 6, we don't have such a long backstretch. We got a couple corners added in there, and then the other stretch that we see coming out of the hairpin, well, now it's a little bit different. We got more 90 degrees corners. How do you see this affecting the lap times and the speeds or the cars?
I think the lap times will definitely be longer. Like, it'd definitely be a longer lap. And Berlin's already tough on energy, but with the few more braking zones, they should be able to regen a little bit more, so they might be okay. I don't know how energy. This is a whole new track for us. We'll find out how energy, how energy management will be during those races. But for me, I think whether we'll see overtaking, it's like the reverse layout. It's like we'll find out, right? We're in for a ride. We'll see what this track's like, and if it's any good for racing, and if they've actually built a great track, or if they haven't actually built a great track. So fingers crossed that it's going to be okay. But I think we'll have to wait and see. I think practice and qualifying might be very interesting.
Yes, certainly. It's gonna be interesting to see this different layout in Berlin. I definitely, think maybe for some drivers who haven't really had a good time, on the traditional reverse course, maybe the changes to the layout, will help them find their mojo and end the season on a positive note. Yeah, and like Jack said, we're just gonna have to wait and see what the final 2 races of the season have in store for us.
Definitely. Now, one of the things, of course, with the new course, we're going to see essentially with those corners, we don't have exactly the long straightaways, which of course is a benefit if you're trying to be in the slipstream drafting to save energy. Do you think that Cheetah is still the favorite for the next 2 races, or do you think, especially because we know Vern doesn't seem to have the race pace, this new course could open the game for anybody to win?
Indeed, it could. I think Tech Cheetah are still the favorites. I think they've got the quickest car in Formula E, so it's like Mercedes going into a new track. They'd still be the favorites, right? So I still think Tech Cheetah are the favorites. Whether or not someone else can, and whether or not, Vern says he's struggling with energy, especially when they go into attack mode. He says he seems to use too much energy during attack mode. And with the lap being longer, could that be a bit more of an issue for Jean-Eric Vern? Who knows? That's what we're going to have to look forward to on Saturday and on Wednesday and Thursday, sorry. And it's just going to be interesting. I still think they're the favorites, but hopefully, because the championship's over, we get some mucked up, we get some fun races where you get the likes of Stoffel Van Dorn or Nick De Vries getting a win, or Ollie Rowland or Buemi, maybe even Di Grassi getting a win. So I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens in those final 2 races.
Yeah, I definitely think that DS Cheetah are the favorites at the moment, and not just it doesn't matter the different layout, reverse, traditional, or new course. I think DS Cheetah is going to be the favorite regardless, or even if regular times we were in different locations. I still think DS Cheetah would be the favorite. And I agree with you on the last point you made right there, Jack. With the championship all wrapped up, it would be really great, for all spectators if we could see some crazy racing, with the running order all mixed up, seeing like Nick De Vries and Stoffel Van Dorn up there, as you mentioned, Oliver Rowland, Buemi, or Max Gunther or Alexander Sims, drivers who we really haven't seen, up there battling for the win so far in Berlin. It would certainly be a lot of fun if we could definitely see an increase of parity.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see what all turns out. Now, if you're Antonio Felix Acosta, you won the championship. Are you still going to go out there to try to win more, increase your points total, try to make more history, or are you just going to go out there, try to just have a good, fun time? Yeah, you'll try to get Super Bowl. That's always exciting. You'll try to get the win. But if you're starting mid pack, what's your strategy?
Just have fun. Just have fun. What have you got to lose? You're just out there going to have fun, trying to do the best race you can. It's literally like a karting race with your mates now. As I said, it's just for pride. So I just think they're going to go out there. You're just going to go and have fun. You've got 2 races left. You're not going to race these cars till January next year. Go out. Well, you're going to do preseason testing in October potentially. But, you're not going to drive these cars in anger in a race mode till January. So go out and just have some fun.
Yeah, certainly go out and have some fun. You mentioned it's going to be a long off season for these Formula E teams, so it's going to be a while before they'll be back in the car again. And so I know some of these drivers are going to be doing some endurance racing in between then, so they'll definitely be able to stay fresh behind the wheel to occupy their time while they're waiting for Formula E to come back. But certainly championships all wrapped up. Drivers championship, teams championship. So you might as well just go out there and enjoy the racing for now.
Definitely enjoy the racing, especially with these cars. As Jack had mentioned, January. Yeah, there's October testing, but still the same adrenaline, same rush you have when you're out there competing against 23 of the other best Formula E race car drivers. It's going to be a super exciting race. I'm anticipating it's going to be, I think, some of the best racing we're seeing. I think those 90-degree corners are really going to set up for some great passing opportunities. And it's going to be really interesting to see who wins those races.
Yeah, speaking of who wins those races, time for everyone's favorite game. Pick a winner for race 5 and race 6 in Berlin. And Jack, I'm going to let you go first. Who do you think is going to win the final 2 races of the season?
Okay. Race 5, Sebastian Buemi. Race 6, Nick de Vries. There are my picks.
Wow. I know going off my pick a winner sheet, which has not been good at all. The only thing I got correct so far has been Antonio Felix Acosta getting the championship. Race 5, I put Lucas Di Grassi. But race 6, I put Antonio Felix Acosta to win the first and the last race of Formula E Fest.
And although Diaz Techeetah has locked up the drivers' championship and the team championship, I'm going with Diaz Techeetah to finish out the season strong with Jean-Eric Vergne winning race 5 and Antonio Felix Acosta the champion, finishing the season by winning race 6 and going out on a high note, put a stamp on it.
Yeah, so I like what Kobe does. Kobe just takes the safe bet, so therefore he wins the race to pick a winner. He knows how to play the game. He's playing the game quite well.
Quite well indeed, especially overall in the pick winner we do for all the series. I know you're on the board. Definitely, as we wrap up the program, Jack, we're always super excited to have you on the program.
No, it's a pleasure.
I know we're going to be very excited next year, especially if we will be definitely interested in doing like a preseason Formula E program. That'll be a lot of fun. We encourage everyone follow Formula E Zone. You can find it on Twitter at Formula E Zone and FormulaEZone.com. Wednesday, we have our Grid Tonight program, in which we're going to highlight the first day of Indianapolis 500 practice. Friday, our Formula E wrap-up program. Looking forward to this one. Same time, I'm sort of sad because it's going to be the last Formula E program for quite some time. But definitely, we're going to be doing more in 2021. And then Saturday, Grid Life pre-race for all the racing going up next weekend. Jack, any final words before we go off the air?
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. We still got one more show to enjoy our company with for a while. So, but yeah, just, to the fans out there, make sure you give, I'm sure if you've gotten this far, you're probably going to give Formula E a chance, but make sure that you definitely do on Wednesday and Thursday.
Indeed,
yes,
Kobe.
yes, sir. Oh, yes, certainly been a great time. Working with you in the Formula E Zone team, Jack. It's been definitely been a pleasure, and looking forward to working with you in the future down the road, especially into next season. I'm sure all of the fans watching who may not have, I'm sure that some of them have heard of Formula E, some may have not, but hopefully after watching our programs, those fans will finally, start to tune into Formula E, understand people on the NASCAR side have been, shying away from Formula E because they're like, I don't like the sound of the car at all because it sounds like a vacuum cleaner. but I feel like over time, that's not going to be an issue anymore, and they're going to learn to accept that. Hey, you can still enjoy the racing, although it is different than what I'm used to.
Definitely, I know one of our super fans have been following a little bit more of the Formula E action. It's been super exciting to see, and definitely encouraging everyone. Formula E Fest, it's been a lot of fun. Hopefully, we see something like this again, not through a pandemic situation, but something fun where we do have 3 races in a weekend or something. That'd be just super fun for the fans to attend. For Jack at Formula E Zone, Kobe at the podium finish. I'm Joe San Diego. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you Friday for the next Formula E Fest program.